All right, final thing here that we want to end with is that recently Laura Horvath competed at the European Weightlifting Championships, and this is a post from her Instagram, some shots from that you can see that we've got up on screen right now. She took 7th, which, pretty impressive for Laura, who just I don't know. I have so much respect for her, the way she just goes about her business. She just puts in the work, does her stuff. She's not flashy about it. She's not, I'm a big fan, and that's another athlete. We talked about Haley Adams earlier, but another athlete I always just look forward to watching compete, because she's a lot of fun to watch, and it always provides us with some fantastic moments. But this was, 7th at the European Championships, like that. I know a 7th for her in a CrossFit world, you'd be like, oh, maybe that's not her potential, but that is extremely respectable in this environment.
And you'll hear from Kristof, her brother, in just a moment, about how it actually could have been a lot better and how there's a lot more room to grow there.
Mm-hmm.
And in this event, there was just kind of a, I don't want to say shaking off the cobwebs, but just getting the feel for what a different cadence of competition can be like. Her posted total coming into the weekend would have put her on the podium and medaled.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly something that she's capable of. But I think it's really cool that we have these athletes that are choosing to apply their fitness in other realms and compete at a very high level. And it was cool that, I got to catch up with Kristof, because he had her coach's badge. So he was back there and he explains what his role really was. But the fact that you have CrossFitters competing at the highest level of other sports too is just, I think it's a win-win all around.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to that quick interview. Here's Kristof Horvath talking about Laura's experience at the European Weightlifting Championships.
Kristof, I know you just got back from Bulgaria and the European Weightlifting Championships, where you were there supporting your sister Laura. And right off the bat, can you tell us a little bit about how that experience went, and a little bit of feedback from Laura's end on how the whole thing went?
Yeah, like a broader picture you're interested in.
Yeah.
It's hard to sum it up, like obviously Laura has been competing at the games at the highest level of CrossFit, at the highest stage, for so long that she's used to the pressure. She used to being under the lights. She's used to having the best in the world around her. But in terms of a sport-specific competition, she hasn't done that in a long time. When we look at weightlifting, we can just think that it's an easier version of CrossFit. You know what you're gonna do. It's 3 lifts in the snatch, followed by 3 in the clean and jerk. But where she competed before, it was only at the Hungarian level when it comes to Olympic weightlifting. And so what happens there is, fortunately, she is the strongest girl in the country. So when even she competed at nationals in Hungary, in weightlifting, she just followed herself. So the maximum waiting time, for example, was 2 minutes there. And then you warm up, you hit your weight, there is no one else. There is not much tactics going into the whole game. She either hit it or she didn't hit it. And then now all of a sudden we find ourselves in Bulgaria, where obviously she did maybe 3 or 4 weeks when lifting was a bit more in focus leading up to it. But still, every day with Gabby, they did a Metcon and they went running, and maybe a little bit of less conditioning, but still training CrossFit. And now we go to Bulgaria, and on Thursday she does her last heavy training session. She went up to her opener weights. And then on Friday, she did a bit of a power work, just focusing on speed. And then on Saturday night at 8 p.m. local time, she was competing. And then we got to the venue 2 hours before. She had to weigh in. And then obviously, well, not obviously, but we had to monitor the weight as well a little bit. This is a new aspect in the sport. And then usually she's around, this is like her natural weight, but you cannot be over by half a kilo or 300 grams or something like that. So she had to pay attention to that one a little bit as well. And then we go in, she gets her weigh in, and then 2 hours of waiting. And then finally we go up to this place that we only see on TV before or on YouTube, right? And then each competitor has their own little booth. We had 2 other national coaches with us who has way more experience. I was really just there for moral support, putting some weights on the bar, taking them off, and then, I don't know, keep the mood light. And then they go out. There's the introduction piece. They introduced her as the fittest woman on earth, which was pretty cool at the recognition. And then she started to warm up. And all in all, well, she wasn't very, very happy with the result. Because in hindsight, you're always smarter in hindsight, right? But shoulda, woulda, coulda is not going to help you at the end. She could have taken, I believe, 4th overall, and she could have clinched the silver medal in the clean and jerk, which would have been huge. But then, just to give a little context there, she warmed up to her snatch opener. She went out and she hit that. And obviously, there's a little bit of pressure because it's almost like, you want to hit your first weight. And there's an extra added pressure because you think, okay, I still have 3 chances, but she has the weights in her head. She opened at 90 kg, which is like 200 pounds, 200, a little more than 200. And then she wanted to go for 95. But what happened a little bit between this 90 and 95 kilos, all of a sudden there was 8 girls. And then another girl goes, and let's say some of them miss, some of them went up and down, and you constantly have to keep one eye on what's happening in terms of who's going up, who's going down, what's happening. And then you also want to keep your athlete ready at all times. And then what happened is that she had 8 or 9 minutes of waiting that she's really not used to it. In training, when she lifted at home, she on purpose waited a bit more between sets. But I think just us CrossFitters by nature and by the nature of the sport, we are tested to lift heavy under fatigue and as tired as possible. And all of a sudden you see these girls and guys, I mean, tremendous how they compete and how you see that they can just literally sit down for 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and then go out and lift sub-maximal and maximal weights out there. And I think it's, so just going back, she missed, so we asked to go 94 instead of 95 kilo because the waiting time would have been less. And then still the waiting time was huge. She went out, she missed the weight. She just looked cold, to be honest. It was just so long till she touched the barbell. And then she missed the 94 2 times. So she just put one number on the board. And then she reframed her mind as well. She was very excited about the clean and jerk because at Europeans and at the world stage, they give you a medal and a placing also on each lift. Yeah. And she knew that she was her number was the 2nd heaviest in the competition, so she had a good chance of hitting a strong number. And there was also like half an hour between the snatch and the clean and jerk, so a long time passed by. She re-warmed up. And then she went out, and then the first clean and jerk, she just had a little press into the bar,
which is okay in CrossFit, right?
Been, yeah, exactly. It's funny, it was still a beautiful lift, but obviously the elbow came in and out a little bit, or down and up, and then they took that lift away. And then she really wanted to get that weight on the board, so she straight away went out for 115 kilos again, and then she hit it for the 2nd try. And this is when it comes like shoulda, woulda, coulda hindsight. If she would have just gone to 116 kilos, she would have been 3rd place overall. But she went 118. And at that time, the waiting was just so freaking long that she went back and then she did a couple of power cleans and split jerks just to keep the speed going. And we waited a long time. And then she went out. The clean looked beautiful, but unfortunately, the jerk wasn't there. And so it's a bittersweet experience, I think, from her side, because from one, I think it's very brave to put yourself in another arena, another sport. It seems like they are very similar, CrossFit and weightlifting, but they couldn't be more different besides the 2 lifts being in CrossFit as well. And she's very proud of her effort and then just by going there. But I think now that it is over, she completely reframed her mind. It's all CrossFit. And then it's also funny because we had the opportunity. There's a beautiful box in Bulgaria where they invited her the next day. So literally as she came off from the stage, they messaged us and they just wanted to get her into the box. So we went there the next morning. Our flight was at noon, and at 9 a.m. we were at the gym. 40 people showed up. They all had a training session together with Laura. They hit a Metcon, and then we went to the airport, and it was very nice. We've never been to Bulgaria before, and the CrossFit community there and the weightlifting community is very special. A lot of strong people are there, so it was just a cool experience for all of us, I think.
No doubt. And as you mentioned, Bulgaria has a storied history in weightlifting specific, but I think it was nice to see that almost reframing happen immediately by being able to step back into a CrossFit box afterwards. And you highlighted a ton of things that are different in terms of procedure and how an event plays out, and where she's super familiar on the CrossFit side, she was in a little unfamiliar territory on the weightlifting. Is it too early to say that this is something she wants to consistently pursue on the side in addition to CrossFit? Is it something where her fire was lit, or is this something where she's just kind of dipping her toe in the waters a little bit?
Probably it's a little bit of both, because there was some speculation that she might compete at the Olympic Games this summer. For multiple reasons, she's not going to do that. One is being she didn't do enough competitions to do that. In weightlifting, you have to do minimum 5 international competitions, and this was her only one. And the most important reason is she wanted to retain the title and then go for the CrossFit Games championship again and win there. But I think come December, there will be the World Championships in weightlifting. And I think that is a great time to refocus and then take some time off after a rogue, hopefully, and then go for that. Also having the previous experiences and then really turn the momentum and keep it going in weightlifting.
For sure. Is the Olympics something that could be in the view at some point? Because that's a pretty cool opportunity.
I mean, she's 26 now. She would be 30 by the time the next Olympic Games roll around. Maybe. I think she would never say never. Maybe. We'll see.
Good insight there from Kristof on Laura's performance. And man, sounds like there's some cool stuff on the horizon possibly for her.
Yeah, he didn't want to be committal towards like the Olympics in what 2028, but there's clearly potential for that there. Obviously she was a missed jerk away from medaling in the clean and jerk, and a missed attempt here and there from being on the podium overall for her weight division, and that's against some very high caliber weightlifters in a country in Bulgaria that is, known for weightlifting. And during, the 70s and 80s had a huge presence in that fashion. And it's interesting to see all of that play out, because it's just such a different, like I mentioned before, a different rhythm. And she was still able to do extremely well. She didn't bomb out. She got good lifts in both attempts. In theory, her first lift, which got a red light for a press out. In our sport, that works, and the commentators even said that. They're like, in CrossFit, that's okay. Yeah. And honestly, there's a lot of people that think that like the clean and jerk, the press out rule for a clean and jerk is kind of archaic, just because it was built when there was actually a clean and press too, and they had to distinguish between the two. But I think Laura obviously has a ton of potential. She's a tremendous lifter, and I don't think this is the end for her in the weightlifting foray. And I think we'll see a little bit more from her, and that's cool, because she deserves as many accolades as possible for all the work that she's put in.
Absolutely.
Well, and I liked the insight that Kristof gave on being completely cold before these lifts. Like, you give me a 4-minute rest before a lift and I'm cold. Talk about 9+ minutes to then go hit these percentages. It really is incredible what those athletes can accomplish.
And that's part of the game, right? Like that's, I've been fortunate to cover some high level weightlifting events. I covered IWF Worlds in Anaheim in 2018 when they were down there. And it's this cat and mouse game with declaring your weights sometimes, that if you're unfamiliar, you can get caught on the wrong side of it. And like you said, like there's 8-9 minutes between lifts, where other people that have, these full teams kind of playing that game and are communicating to you the whole time. Like Laura basically had the Hungarian Weightlifting Federation representative there, like procedurally looking after some things. Kristof there to load weights and be moral support. But she was picking her weights herself. She didn't have like the swath of individuals helping around. She didn't need it. And so I think that like, if this is the baseline for her, man, it's only going to be up from here.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what's ahead for Laura Horvath.